have the unique background of being a buyer of outsourcing services for many years prior to joining IMS in 2020, and now oversee a team of over 800 staff that drive our operations, both on the recruiting and the credentialing compliance side of our businesses, supporting solely staffing firms in North America. So it's great to have you all in this conversation. Next, I'll introduce Elisa, who is a customer of outsourcing for many years. She can share her background and more about her business.
Thank you, Bryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Ciardiello, and I am the CEO of a healthcare staffing company. I've got about 35 years of staffing experience. I was one of the founders at Pharmaceutical Strategies, and I feel like I can say we successfully, have been using an outsourcing provider.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to the call. And then we have Saif, who actually drives our sales team in India as part of our organization. Saif, welcome to the call. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Bryan. Hello, everyone. As rightly said by Bryan, I take care of sales for our North America division of People Possible. Been doing it for 5 years now, and it's my pleasure and honor to be on this webinar where I can give some insights about how to choose your partner and how we can make it a successful partnership, which is more important. So thank you once again for all the people who have joined. Looking forward to this webinar.
Thank you, Saif. And as we jump in, as I mentioned, for many of you, outsourcing may be, and offshoring may be a little bit of a taboo or concerning word. And so what we really wanted to reinforce is that to help grow your business and continue to scale. And we don't see it as a risk or as a gamble. But understand that for many of you that have dabbled in it before, that it is a concern. But we've seen outsourcing grow significantly in popularity, become much more mainstream, particularly post-pandemic. And one of the main areas that offshoring is so attractive is that inherently it is a cost reduction. That kind of goes without saying. But two, it gives those of you on the call the access to specialized talent globally, and also be able to leverage and utilize a team on a 24/7 operation rather than just having a traditional kind of 9-to-5 business organization. But I think really the last two items here are what's most critical, is the ability to scale and have flexibility in your business as demand ebbs and flows. And as we've seen over the course of the last 5 years or so, that there's been sharp roller coasters of demand and lack thereof as we've gone forward. So it really gives businesses the opportunity to scale up quickly as needed, but also to scale down as needed when demand dictates. And then finally, just wanted to reinforce that I think one of the most attractive items about outsourcing is that we're not in the replacement business. We're not here to take away jobs of those that work in the various countries of origin, but really to help augment and support those organizations to keep the teams locally in your various states or provinces focused on your core competencies, engaging with your talent and engaging with your customers in more thoughtful and direct ways. And then an outsourcing partner is really there to manage the top funnel, to manage a lot of the either mundane or but required necessities within the business, so that you can drive the profitability business for your organization as well. So with that as the backdrop, what we wanted to do is really dive into, as I mentioned, the 7 tips for successful outsourcing. And so we're going to go through each of these one by one, and we'll pose questions to Elisa as kind of the voice of the customer. But then we'll also get Seth's perspective as he's working with clients, day in and day out, and getting feedback and updates, during both the implementation and hypercare phases of our partnerships. And so I think both will be able to share a lot of perspective on how it's worked for them, but also some cautionary tales or best practices to avoid some landmines. And then finally, I can step in, just give my unique background of being both a buyer and a seller of the services, and what we see has really worked for our customer base over the years. So the first successful tip is creating opportunities to integrate your offshore team. And so Elisa, as you think about over the past several years that you've worked with an outsourced partner, what are some ways that you've been able to create an integration between your local teams and the offshore team, and what are some best practices that you found have really worked well?
And you said one important point that I want to stress on. Our opportunity with our teams in the U.S. is not to eliminate, but to support our team. It actually gives more support to our team in the U.S. In communication, super key factor. We have frequent communications on Teams. Even though we say communication, it's not phone, it's team calls where it's on video, daily check-ins. We've got monthly account manager meetings with both our teams in the U.S. and our offshore team. Technical integration is key. We do have the offshore team that is in our system. They have our email addresses, and they're in our, we use Bullhorn. They're in our systems and follow-up processes that they have buy-in and have ideas about our systems as well. They're on our client calls, which again is a key to opportunities and communication. We like them to hear right from the customers where the pain points are. So we actually have them on our client calls as well. And as I said, they're involved in decision making, whether it's to scale up or scale down on the offshore side. Some decisions on our client side, and we continue to provide training for the offshore.
Absolutely. And Saif, in your experience working with customers, anything else you'd like to add in terms of kind of best practices or considerations with integration, or maybe on the flip side, if weren't integrated, maybe some challenges that you've seen teams experience?
No, well, rightly said by Elisa that the key factor of this partnership is having that mental blockage that we are here to take up the job, or we are here to take somebody else's part of the platter, but invariably we are only here to support. So first and foremost, this is the mental blockage that we ask our clients to take it off when they are taking the plunge into the offshore market. Because to put it in a simple analogy, Bryan, what I would say that we are like the part of the spare wheel of your car. You may not need it very often, but if you are stranded on a road, only that spare wheel can get you back home safely. So consider offshore team as a spare wheel who's there only to provide impetus and support to your recruiting engine. And along with that comes n number of other goodies that come along with it, be it the experience, the manpower, the diversity in the manpower, the experience of vast domains. It could be today you might have a requisition for IT specific domain, tomorrow it could be for accounting and finance. So you don't have to go to another expert to provide you a solution of that. It's a one-stop solution that can provide you anything that is needed under the purview of recruiting. And just want to close by saying this thing, which I say very often to our clients, that if you need a human to find a human, we provide you that human. So this is the beauty of offshoring with a competent partner like IMS. You don't have to worry about which domain, different industry, different work order. We are here to provide you a solution. And the first and foremost thing is you should be mentally ready to embrace it, accept it, and grow in the partnership.
Well, absolutely, Saif. And I think you touched on a lot of important factors. I think two things that I always considered when I was a buyer of the service is that I always treated the recruiters, whether it be those that were actually recruiting on the requisition, sourcers, credentialists, supporting with the onboarding, was that they were just like anybody else on my team. And I had one-on-ones with them, and I had leadership meetings with the provider's leadership on a weekly basis to make sure we were aligned. And they just happen to be half a world away. And I think that mentality, when we see our clients really embody that, to your point, Saif, is that's when we really see things take off and performance really improve. And the teams respond to that. When they know that they're a part of that team, they're seen as a team member, that really also translates to the culture. And then lastly, we actually do time studies and actually performance studies where we see that when we integrate within the technologies, whether it be ATS, whether it be submitting in the VMS systems, that speed to delivery is key. In that with the clients that we are integrated from a technology stack standpoint, we submit typically almost 50% faster. We see nearly double the interview rate and double the higher percentage of fill rate because that speed to action is so critical. So just wanted to touch upon that as well.
Perfect.
You both mentioned a little bit about that outsourcing can be nerve-wracking, particularly for organizations that haven't embarked on that journey before. And so really getting the buy-in and what we call the enrollment of a lot of the key stakeholders, particularly those in the front line that are going to be working with the teams out offshore impacted by those teams, it's very critical. So I'm curious, Elisa, you've had different iterations of and scaled the partnership in different phases. How have you been able to enroll your local teams, with about an outsourcing strategy and how to get their buy-in to engage?
Sure. So, obviously buy-in is key. Our account managers in the U.S., I help them and we help them understand how the offshore team aligns with their professional growth. So them growing with their accounts and their clients and, helping their clients with the openings, they work hand in hand with the offshore team. The sales team has the same, goals and their bonuses outlined with the team, so they can, kind of motivate each other, and they feel like, the recruiters are obviously part of the success of a client. So we do incentives, for both the account manager and the recruiting by client. Also, we did add the IMS, the offshore team, I should say, to our website. And this is, because we did have some issues in the beginning where, the language barrier, the U.S. thinking is there a scam. So adding that group picture on our website, when candidates go there, or even clients, they can see, yes, we do have an offshore team that is part of that team. That helps as well. So I think that's the biggest thing, really, the stakeholders just need to understand that the goals are aligned with what we've set up with the offshore.
Yeah, absolutely. Saif, your perspective and working with a variety of clients, how have you been able to help navigate that with customers that rightfully so understand that there's buy-in and there's trepidation in an outsourcing partnership?
Definitely, Bryan. So in that case, we definitely try to avoid the gray area. It should be crystal clear to everyone who's working on the offshore team, on the onshore team, that this is one team. We are all here to succeed together. So getting the buy-in of these account managers and the on-site team, different stakeholders, ensuring that the offshore team becomes an integral part of the team. So how it could be done, just like with mostly all our clients, the recruiters go on a morning briefing, daily, getting on at least multiple calls in a day. Usually a day at IMS starts with a morning wake-up call where the account manager, the on-site recruiters, along with the team leaders, they go on the call, they first say that wish each other good morning, talk about the prioritizations of the rec, and then during the mid of the day, there's a catch-up call, how's everything going, if there are any issues, challenges, how we can work around. End of the day, how was the whole day, what's the plan of action for tomorrow? So in this way, the on-site team is in continuous conversation with the offshore team, and that's how the synergy is built. They all understand that we are working towards the common goal of making that company successful. And that actually brings down the guards of the on-site team, and different people are involved at different stakeholders, that this is one aim, one goal, one team. And this is where we have seen the success in the partnership. So I would say that in what I said in the beginning, there shouldn't be any gray area. It should be transparent, it should be clear, and we all should know what the other person is into and doing in what way. So this is usually how I have seen things flourish with a partnership that has been successful with IMS.
Yeah, absolutely, Saif. I think you've touched on the third step actually in many respects around having that consistent purposeful communication, and that is a key aspect. And the communication in any partnership is always key, but I think particularly in outsourcing, I think where I've seen clients or those that have leveraged outsourcing in the past fail, candidly, is when they think, we're going to meet every 30 days and then yell at the outsourcing provider when they didn't accomplish what we expected. But I think a misconception is that the outsourcing team provides the service, we'll let them do what they need to do. But it really is, rather than just outsourcing, it's really more core-sourcing. So I'm curious from your perspective, Elisa, in terms of managing that communication. Saif outlined a couple of examples already, but how does your team manage the communication with the offshore team? Do you have a particular cadence that you meet? Do you have a certain way of communicating, engaging back and forth?
Yeah, it's funny. Yes, you did actually hone in on what I had, what we do on our side. We do have daily meetings, priority meetings, any roadblocks or, maybe even issues that they're having. So every morning we have our morning meetings. We also, as I said, they're on our same email, they're on our domain. So we use Microsoft Teams. And, that is real time. So if they need to, send us anything, yes, they can send it via email, but Teams, like, any questions come up and we're there to answer. So it's like someone working from home, it's offshore, but for us, we feel like it's just like someone just working outside of our office. Even documents, that's key to us, to make sure that everything gets documented. We use OneDrive, all the documents get posted there. Again, all that communication is important for them to be able to access and for us to see on our end. So there is the transparency there.
Well, absolutely. As you said, if it's not in the ATS, it didn't happen. And we embody the same methodology, with our customers as well, just as they would with their local teams. And so wanted to say, first and foremost, thanks so much for the insight thus far. One thing I actually failed to mention at the beginning is that if you have questions to the audience along the way, feel free to put that in the chat. We will have a session of probably 5 to 10 minutes after we go through the 7 steps where we can address some of those questions. So, but don't feel that you need to hang on to those till the end. Feel free to put them in the chat throughout our conversation, and then we'll make sure to spend some time to address those questions, and you can address them to Elisa, to Saif, to myself, or the group overall. So, but the fourth step is one that I think is obviously very critical. And again, this is where whether you're using an outsourcing provider now or you've considered it in the future, it's one that should not be made in haste, right? So it is taking the time to choose that right partner. And so, Elisa, obviously it's been some time since you've selected a partner, but I'm curious, since you've gone through that experience, you've also spoken with a lot of companies that have identified their own partner before as well. What are some kind of key criteria or maybe considerations that for someone that's thinking about it that they should be asking the partner as they're going through that selection process?
Sure. Yes, the vetting process for us, was super important. I know it's important for everyone, but it was very important. We wanted to partner with a company that's going to be long-term. We weren't looking for a short-term hit. We were looking for a long-term partner. So we looked at companies that had experience in healthcare staffing, and understood like professional licensure, because that's obviously our key competency for our clients. Knew the different immunizations and the methods, not to get into a lot of details, but we really understood the healthcare role. So that's what we looked at. We looked at scalability and flexibility, someone that could grow with us when we really needed it. And, I can give you an example. COVID was the best year for us. We didn't know that until we were into COVID. So we went from having probably about 25 to 30 recruiters to needing up to 100 in less than a month. And, luckily we chose IMS, that scalability and flexibility was there. So that's how we picked our partners. We also looked at, I know we do use IMS, and we have a team in India and a team in Philippines. We feel like both of those teams work well with us depending on the niche of the role and the speed that we need a role filled. In perm and temp, we do use some of the team in Philippines for perm, but we also use the India team as well. There was a lot of things we looked into it, but it was the healthcare roles that were primarily, and the scalability that was huge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Saif, a slightly different question for you, but it would be: are there any questions that companies that are investigating outsourcing should ask that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
Absolutely. You rightly asked that question, Bryan. So what I feel they should ask 3 things. and I have given an abbreviation to it, that's THA. So that is, first of all, transparency, second is honesty, and third is account management. Because these are the three elements which usually when we are at the spur of the heat and spur of the moment, we just say that, okay, we need recruiters to take up these jobs, there are open recs and all that. So in that haste, we forget to look into these three key elements for any offshore partner. The transparency, like when we have somebody who has called in sick today, we ensure that we upfrontly inform the client that, okay, this person, recruiter ABC, is not in today, but we do have a backup. Would you like us to provide you with a backup who's been trained on the systems and the processes, just like your recruiter? And if they say yes, only that recruiter is deployed on that project, or else you're not billed for that individual day. So, well, transparency, honesty. If someone is not in, we raise our hands and say that, okay, this recruiter is not in. We're not going to cover up by putting somebody else on the replacement or the body of that recruiter. And the person and the topmost priority or the topmost important thing is the account management. Because most of the time, most of the clients, they ask for the performance from a recruiter. And when the recruiter is unable to deliver, they come back to the manager and say that, oh, the recruiter is not performing. So what we do from day one itself, the whole burden of delivery is not on the recruiter, but on the account management, which comprises of a team leader, process manager, operation manager, senior operation manager, AVP, VP, up till the level of Bryan as well to the COO, because we count this entire hierarchy responsible for the delivery of the SLAs. Now, when things go wrong, it's not the recruiter, but it's the account manager who holds the responsibility and ensure that we correct whatever is needed, because what we have committed to our client becomes our Bible, and we ensure to deliver it, whether it's done through ABC recruiter or XYZ. So these are the three things anybody who wants to venture into offshore should keep their priority checklist. How do you measure? How do you do the tick boxes on these check boxes when you're selecting a right offshore partner? So this is what I would like to say, which is missed out, but don't count on the recruiter, count on the people who are getting the work done from the recruiter. So that's what I would say.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Saif and Elisa, for your thoughts on that one, because it is critical. I think another aspect that is important here, number 5 in our tips for successful offshoring, is setting expectations. And this is one that it's really close to home for me, and really centers around the fact that just like any person that you would add to the team, you need to make sure that expectations are set realistically and that all parties are set up for success. And so I'm curious, Elisa, from your vantage point, being an outsourcing customer for many years, how have you been able to set proper expectations? How have you been able to determine with the teams what you can expect in terms of an outcome and performance, and vice versa?
So Eric, obviously expectation and KPIs, both for our offshore and the teams here are important to hit our goals. But we have clearly outlined tasks and responsibilities. For the offshore team, they primarily do the sourcing, the vetting, and the verification of licensure for the candidates. We do have a team that, again, supports them as well, where we have someone in the U.S. that does speak with the candidates that were sourced and vetted by the recruiters, just to make sure that there's nothing that was missed, I guess, for lack of a better word. And the on our side, we make sure, again, Bullhorn, the recruiters, the offshore team is able to see the status of each candidates. So they like to see their candidates going from sourcing or vetting to interview to offer, and they're able to see that. So because at the end of the day, it's really, filling that job for the client is what, our goal, all our goals are. So I think, again, just making sure that they've got identified and outlined their tasks. They also provide weekly reporting. They actually provide weekly reporting to us, even though, a lot of the stuff comes out of Bullhorn, because that's really the step back to say what is going on. Is there some things that we need to focus on? So the offshore team does work on weekly reporting, and then we go through that weekly reporting, once a week to overcome any issues. And again, the real-time access of Bullhorn is keeping the expectation, so they can see that.
Thank you, Lisa. And Saif, one of your main parts of your job is setting real expectations with our clients. And so from your vantage point, I'm curious, how do you set those properly, and you discuss a ramp period, for the team members? Kind of walk us through how those conversations go, and what someone new to outsourcing can expect.
Absolutely. So the first and foremost thing is setting the expectation right from day one itself up till 1,000 days. So this is usually the curve that we try to give to our clients, that this is what the performance would look like in the initial 30 to 45 days, which would be more of a learning curve. But the beauty of working with IMS is that you don't have to wait for 45 days to get the results. The results could be delivered from day one or day two itself. It's just that setting that expectation, because it's better, as I said earlier in my earlier aspect as well, transparency and honesty. We say that we are new to you, you are new to us. Give us time, the breathing time where we can settle down, understand the job requisitions, see what kind of candidate pool is available, and then we agree on an SLA. So usually with any client that we commence a partnership, we ask for 4 to 6 weeks of a time to agree upon the SLA. And once we do that, then we chalk out the whole plan for the 1,000 days. All right, the first 3 months is going to be this much performance. The next 3 months, the next quarter would be this much. So in that way, we have everything crystal clear. And when you have set the expectation from day one itself, there's no room of ambiguity or questions. And this is the best way to commence a partnership. It's something like we agreed to the marriage vows from day one itself, rather than after the 10th anniversary, we decide what we're going to agree upon. So this is what we do on day one itself. We set the expectation, and for a long term, not for the short term. So this is what I usually do with all my clients whom I onboard with IMS.
Well, thank you, Saif. Not only getting offshoring advice, but marriage advice. So that's appreciated. But next is what we just discussed in terms of the top 7 steps for successful outsourcing is really charting out that detailed implementation plan. And that's not necessarily just to start a partnership, but that can be onboarding a new customer, that the team will be supporting. That could be ramping up quickly. And so curious, Elisa, just on what you found is to be some best practices, or maybe, words to the wary, maybe if things didn't always go the way you planned, about how to properly implement either the initial team or a team that's ramping and scaling quickly.
So I know we actually, just more recently, put an implementation plan for a new, sector or a line of business that, different roles that we would like to, work on. And really that implementation team really starts with, making sure the team understands the client, understands the roles. We define the recruitment process, the KPIs, as we talked about. And, we always do a little pilot first, right? And we do give them roles to fill, and it's not the hard roles to fill, because I think what's important is success, right? We want to make sure that they work on some roles for us, so we know they understand our clients or our processes, our systems, and then obviously we tweak anything during the pilot and then go live. So it sounds like a long process, but depending on how quick, like when we did it for COVID, we needed to bring 60 people up to speed. So, we did bring a couple of managers, that we had live with our clients on the calls, and then they brought those recruiters up to speed, within a couple of days on really what our client was not trying to do, what the project was. And we went live and we were very successful, but, we just have to make sure that they really understand the client and the roles.
Absolutely. And Saif, I know you're well-versed in a lot of client implementations. What have you seen has worked, or maybe where are some landmines where it hasn't worked that can help those listening today avoid those landmines?
Sure. So the first and foremost thing is you chalk out the implementation plan before even you commence the partnership. So right from getting into the agreement stage, hiring of the resources, training of the resources, everything is shared beforehand along with the agreement, or probably after the agreement MSA or the draft MSA is sent across. So it sets the expectation right at the first note itself, that if you are signing the agreement with us, tentatively 3 weeks down the line would be the go live date. And from go live date, what is going to be the first review looks like, when is going to be the first weekly review call, when is going to be the monthly review call, when is going to be the QBR. So all these expectations are set forth clearly on day one itself. And this is what gives the clarity to our client as well, that this is what they can expect from IMS in terms of the processes, in terms of our accuracy or our expectation to deliver. So this everything is incorporated into a chalk out plan that we have, what we call as implementation plan, which we share with mostly all our clients before even we go live. That comprises of everything that is possible under the delivery team. And this should always be kept in mind to have the expectations right and deliver the best output.
Agreed, Saif. And I think one other aspect of that is that it is a two-way street. And while we as a service provider, or any service provider for that matter, would identify what steps that they would take, and I think identifying who's going to be doing each step in that process is critical. But I think where clients sometimes get it wrong, right, is that they don't have an internal stakeholder that's accountable in managing that implementation, that relationship, or they don't have someone that's equally accountable for charting that each step in the implementation as well. And so what we do is really map it almost like a RACI to where client contact does XYZ, we do ABC concurrently, and then we both then align at a cadence, as you mentioned, Saif, in terms of where we added the implementation, both kind of turn our keys so that everybody is moving in lockstep to ensure that the implementation is successful. And look, don't get me wrong, breakdowns happen, right? And so, but it's really more about how you handle those breakdowns together that defines the success of the implementation program.
Absolutely, Bryan. Rightly said.
And then the last, but certainly not least, seventh step in a successful offshoring partnership is having clarity of outcomes. And this is one that I think is important really to define. When I think of clarity of outcomes, it's really about then assessing that return on investment. Our clients, and I'm sure Elisa, different, goes into a partnership because you expect a certain amount of return on that investment to help grow your business. And so I'm curious, Elisa, is how do you really work with your outsourced partner to determine that what that return on investment looks like, and then how do you manage those kind of goalposts and those expectations as you go forward?
So, I mean, to me, having in my team, so having a clarity of the outcomes for both our offshore team and US team, is really important to ensure that everybody's involved. Sorry. The one thing with the team, I mean, even though I know it's a cost, it's not just about the cost savings. Obviously the team is our lifeline. We get report cards, with our clients, and we share those with, again, our outsourced team, because they have to be aligned with the goals that our clients have set for us as well. And that's how we align some of their goals. So that expectation, is important. And all of that, again, we talk about the transparency, the KPIs, they work with us on our budget cycle, you know what I mean? The management at, the offshore team, we say, okay, this is what we would like to hit, so, and then we get the offshore team involved. So I think really clarity is really the transparency to us to make sure, everyone knows what they have to do.
Yep, absolutely. Saif, any other perspectives when you're in?
Absolutely, Bryan. So what we do in this instance, and particularly for this point, is we keep a proactive approach, which is the ideal way, because on every Friday, there is a synopsis of the whole week performance of each and every individual of the team, from recruiter A to recruiter Z, whoever is there. Their weekly synopsis on the performance, like how many jobs received by them, how many are account manager submissions, how many end client submissions, how many interviews, so sub to interview ratio, interview to start ratio. There's on Friday, every Friday, to each and every client, there goes a weekly report of the delivery or the output delivered by the IMS team. This helps us getting the clarity in the outcome, keep a proactive approach. If something is not working out, we don't wait for the 12th hour to see, oh, down the line, 3 months, we realize some individual is not able to come up to the expectation of the company. And we say, oh, we were trying to evaluate and it took us 3 months. That's not how IMS deals with this situation. So every week, we have a close eye on each and every individual's performance. And invariably, this is to get the outcome what our client expects from a company like IMS or the offshore partner. And this is one of the instances that I'm trying to put across over here that gives a clear indication of where do we stand in terms of the partnership, what are the outcomes that are coming across from what we have committed. So this is how we deal with each and every client, no matter the size of the recruiting team that they have with us.
Well, thank you, Saif. And I think just to piggyback, both Elisa and your comments is that, clarity is the key word. Obviously, the outcomes are what everybody strives for, but where we found, I think, that the strongest partnerships is that, I think to Lisa's point, that we're integrated into those budgets, we're integrated into those plans. And sometimes it takes a little bit of faith, and trust to open up the hood a little bit to share margin information and to share how the business is performing. But ultimately, how we're measured is the value that we provide, to our customer base. And so I think one key way to manage that closely is to have quarterly business reviews where we discuss what works, what hasn't, and make sure that we are aligned on what the outcomes are and that feedback. But then most importantly, set goals and expectations for then the next quarter that we can chart towards. And there's times, candidly, and I've had in recent conversations with clients where the vision that we had for the partnership wasn't necessarily aligned with the client. So, that's important that we discuss that to make sure. But it's really more about we saw a future for ourselves that the client couldn't even see, and we need to bring that to light and really identify the pathways to achieve those outcomes. And we have to be very clear and very upfront about what we're doing to achieve them, how we can do it together. And undoubtedly, we've proven to provide value to our clients. And so thank you all for your insights there. We've got a little bit of time. I'll ask both of you one ad hoc question that we hadn't planned, but would be, I guess, Elisa, would be if there's any, kind of maybe 2 or 3 takeaways that you would share, just advice that you would give to those listening here that maybe has used an outsourcing partner, but it didn't work, or they're considering it now. Just anything else that you haven't had a chance to share yet that you would like to leave as a closing remark?
I mean, the only thing I would say is, if someone has done it, because we did do it differently. Our model was a little differently, where we did piggyback the recruiters with a offshore recruiter, like a U.S. recruiter, and that model just didn't work for us. And I think just because it didn't work, we did try a different model. We didn't just say, oh, this doesn't work, it's offshore recruiting. So having, again, then be supplemented to our account management team, where we do have a stakeholder, few stakeholders in the U.S. that works, with the different offshore team. And again, they're aligned, so because of strong communication is key, and alignment of expectations is key. So, things didn't work, but we kept at it because we knew that there was a way that this could work. So that's all
Yeah, absolutely. Saif, any words of wisdom that you hadn't had a chance to share that you'd like to share to the team?
Sure, I would like to quote, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. So choose the right partner, make it a success, and it'll be our pleasure to serve you.
Thank you, Saif. The salesman always, but no, I appreciate the insight from you both. The last thing that I would say is, and I think it's a combination of what you both said, is that outsourcing, particularly in India and the Philippines, where we have centers, has really matured over the last 5 to 10 years, since I started doing this. And I think that it's now become more mainstream. The processes, the infrastructure, the training, all of that has become much more in depth and robust over the years. And I've seen that evolution, not only within our organization, but leveraging a half a dozen partners over the years that, I think it's now primed to be a really great value add to any business out there. But it has to be the right process, the right intention, and with the right co-source partnership to drive that through. And so, as Steph said, we welcome any opportunity for that discussion. Before we end, just wanted to share that we've got a couple of takeaways outside of the great intel and insights from Elisa and Steph for you all, that you can click on this QR code for a checklist on how to choose the right offshore partner. We touched a little bit on some of those questions or criteria to use when you're selecting, but this is a much more robust document that you can use as you're thinking about an offshore outsourcing partnership. And then also, again, a little bit of an overview of the 7-step guide to make offshore work for you, similar to this conversation. So you've got some takeaways there. But before we conclude, wanted to see if we've got any questions in the queue from the audience.
Hey Bryan, we have a few questions. I'll go ahead with the first one. How easy is this to implement if we hired a couple recruiters? Is it very disruptive to your existing team? Also, what does the training look like?
Elisa, if you wanted to tackle that, just how easy is it to implement a small team of recruiters, and is it disruptive to the local team?
So I would say it is easy to implement, and that's obviously the scaling and flexibility. But it's important to make sure that someone on your team does dedicate the time to make it successful. Really training them on the system or training them on the jobs. It really depends on how much time the local team has. And I don't mean you need a ton of time from local, but you do need someone that has buy-in. Like you say, it's all about buy-in. Because once it clicks, then you'll see you can add to it. So, and I always say, if you're going to add, depending on the number of jobs, like don't add one. Add a few, because just like if we have an internal team, not everybody works. But give it 2 to 3, recruiters, depending, again, I don't know the number of jobs, but depending, put enough there so you can see, does it work or not?
Just to add on to what Elisa said, if there is the success or the failure of the partnership relies on one recruiter, which ideally could not be a justifiable situation or a thing to do. So we recommend that at least start with 2 or 3. So if one is down, the other one can pull up. And it gives the room to IMS as well to find the replacement, make the change, whatever need be. And when you talk about implementation, how easy it is, to simplify it, I would say it's just like hiring somebody in your on-site team. How do you decide? You first look at the resume. If you like the resume, you call the person for the interview. Once you interview the person, you like the person, you give the offer, and that's how the person starts. It's going to happen exactly the same way out here, but it's just be virtual. You'll have your recruiter presented to you in the form of resume. If you like them, you interview them. Once you interview, you ask them to be deployed on the project. Only those recruiters would be put up on your project. And then the rest, you leave it to IMS, because we own it, we take the responsibility, and we ensure we deliver it.
Thank you both. And the one thing I would just add on, I think there was a question also around kind of how training works, and training, it depending upon the vertical or the region within IMS may differ a little bit, but at minimum we provide a 5-week training for our resources. 2-week is more lecture and classroom training, but still very interactive, where the team learns about the geography that they're going to be supporting, the industry that they're going to be supporting, the nuances and different, if it's healthcare, for example, as Elisa mentioned, it's the different specialties and what different terminology means. But what's most important is the 3 weeks after, which is what we call the on-the-job training, which is where the resources actually simulate the job. They'll make calls. Where it's most effective is when we're actually integrating that process with our client training, a customer that may be long-term with us, or we may customize that on-the-job training for them. That's where you really get the benefit and accelerate that value and impact. Is then now going through that on-the-job training for several weeks, we're learning our client's process. We're learning about our clients' customers and quickly going through all the technology setup and training that's involved. So we want to make sure that our team members are ready, that they're deployed, and that they're impactful from Jump Street. There's also customers, particularly in the healthcare realm, where we may even do up to a 90-day healthcare academy program because of the intricacies of the industries. That includes HIPAA training, in the U.S. and GDPR training in the UK and APAC regions. And so, we know how important, training and the branding of your organization is. And so we would never want a client to move forward with somebody unless they've selected them. They know that they're properly vetted and properly trained, so they can make an impact on your business as soon as possible. Any other questions, team?
Right. The next question is, we have a hypothetical question. If you had unlimited resources for recruitment, what would be the first things you would change and why? With AI becoming a big part of every industry, whether it's in application tracking system, sending cold emails, posting jobs, or reviewing application, how would you adapt to these changes?
I can take that, but obviously, Lisa, feel free to jump in. It's the obvious conversation that's happening a lot in the industry as obviously technology, artificial intelligence is becoming, rampantly more impressive and whatnot. But we believe that offshoring isn't necessarily a choice between utilizing technology and utilizing human interface. It's about bringing those two together to really optimize the solution. And so, within IMS, we're no different. So we have teams of technologists that are building out solutions on behalf of our clients or to support our recruiting teams so that they're not just relying on the legacy job boards, and search strings and a lot of that manual work that we can accelerate through technology. I love the thought of having unlimited resources, right? That's not necessarily always the case. But, our vision is to have a multi-pronged solution as we do now. To be able to utilize technology to our benefit, but also ammo our teams and our clients with the best of both worlds, with human interface and a technical touch. But we believe, and our customers believe, that recruiting and that human touch is never going to go away. It's just about how do you best leverage technology together to provide a great candidate and client experience for everybody involved. I don't know, Saif and Elisa, if you've got any other perspective there, but that would be my stance.
No, I think you covered it well, Bryan. Nothing from my side.
Yep, same here. I do think the human interface is key. I think, like you said, anybody can go on the careers and monsters, but really building your database and those connections in your database is what separates you from, the other.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, we have many questions coming in, but
Okay.
we'll answer next two questions as per the time permits us, and the rest questions will be answered via email, or you can reach out to Bryan, Saif, and Elisa too. All right, moving forward to the question: what is a realistic timeline to realize positive results or an ROI with outsourcing? What is a typical ROI percentage?
So I'll jump in. Obviously, it's going to vary from customer to customer, which isn't the cop-out, but that's the reality. What I would typically say, and I've experienced this as well as a customer, is that you could usually expect in the 3 to 6 month time frame, kind of as Seth outlined initially, is when you start to then actually realize where there's margin coming through from the placements, or there's a process optimization. If it's more on the onboarding and credentialing side, that's typically when we would start to see that growth, as well as that return on investment, really start to sharply increase. And then in terms of output, I think that's a continuous conversation, right? I think you always want to level up and make sure that we're changing the act in everything that we do. And so that's where we use our quarterly business reviews to assess and then make sure that we're up in the ante, that we're pushing the envelope, and we're always trying to identify ways to increase our return on investment, say from a 2 to 3x. And we see now clients that have been longstanding customers, we have 8 to 10x, right? And so again, that's not me saying that after 3 months that's going to happen within a new partnership, but when we have a focus, when we have a truly clear outline and the plan of what we want to accomplish together, those are some of the realistic outcomes that you can expect. And if we're not achieving those outcomes, that's where we want to put our hands up and say, here's where we think there's some breakdowns, here's some solutions that we think can really solve some of those problems, and having that transparency and relationship back and forth is what's critical. think we've got time for one more question.
Yes, thanks, Bryan. The next question is for Elisa. How many job orders do you distribute to each offshore recruiter?
It depends on the client and the uniqueness, I guess, of the job, if it's a specialty job or not. But we say anywhere from 3 to 5. Some get less if it's perm, and depending on if we're looking for a specialty pharmacist, for example, like an oncology pharmacist. So, but our goal is 3 to 5 per recruiter. And we do priorities every morning. I say we, our account managers, do priorities every morning with the team to go over their priorities.
And just to confirm, Elisa, that's 3 to 5 a week in terms of the cadence and the frequency of those requisitions, or is that 3 to 5 at any given time? Just want to make sure that we're clear.
3 to 5 any given time. I mean, if they feel, if they only need one position and they, finish obviously that day, then, for us, it's about speed. Majority of our business is contract, so it's all about speed. So, a recruiter might have 10 jobs by the end of the week if it's, again, not a unique job, not hard job, or they might have 2 for the week if it's a job that they're looking for a specialty. It really does depend on the role of the job.
Very good. Thank you for the insight. Well, again, just wanted to thank everybody for attending this webinar. We recognize we may not be able to get to all of your questions, which is a great problem to have. And so, feel free to reach out to myself or Steph, within IMS. Elisa, is a great advocate, of outsourcing in general. And I know we'll be extremely honest and candid about what works and what doesn't. And so we're happy to share your information, Elisa, for those that may have interest in speaking with you as well, so long as you're aligned. And then, we look forward to everybody downloading the ebooks and the insights that we've shared. And we welcome the opportunity to help be a game changer. So hopefully these 7 tips have helped gain perspective on how to utilize an outsourcing partnership. And we wish you the best of luck the rest of the week and into a great 2025.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, Steph.
Thanks, Bryan. Thanks, Elisa.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.